Welcome viewers to the series Exploring Careers and Technology's New Frontiers. This episode is titled Marketing in a Competitive Clouded World. My name is Saren Kim, class of 2022 at Middlebury College, and I would like to introduce this guest speaker. I am joined today by David Ellis, class of 2009, Microsoft Product Marketing Manager of Azure App Services. Welcome and thank you for joining us, David. David, this series explores a number of different professional areas involved in new frontiers in technology. Tell us a little bit about your organization, where it fits in within the technology field, what the current and future landscape looks like, and what you do in your role.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here and join you today. Happy to share a little bit about Microsoft and Microsoft Azure and where we're heading in the future within the technology field. So again, my name is David Ellis. I'm a product marketing manager within Microsoft Azure. Azure is a part of Microsoft's cloud business. So basically, the way to think about that is we provide storage and databases for customers who are interested in moving their workloads from on-premises to the cloud. So we're basically providing a pay-as-you-go service to customers so that they don't have to manage their infrastructure within their enterprises. We also have other products that I'm sure you're more familiar with. We have Word, Excel, PowerPoint, are probably the most famous ones, but we also have Outlook and Teams, Xbox, OneNote, Surface, Bing, Edge. We also have some VR, virtual reality, and mixed reality products such as HoloLens. So Microsoft as a company has some really amazing products other than just Microsoft Azure. I would say in terms of how this fits into the technology field, gosh, the technology industry is pretty broad spectrum, but one of the things that's really accelerating growth right now is within the cloud space as companies think about how to help their companies grow, how to be more efficient with their P&Ls. And a part of that is part of the way to do that is by offloading the management of their infrastructures to cloud providers such as Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud Platform. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of it now as well. So AWS was founded or was launched back in 2006. Azure was launched shortly thereafter in 2010. So we're still in kind of the migration phase. So in my role, I'm heavily focused on helping customers to migrate a lot of their web applications over to the cloud, specifically within Azure App Service. And my role focuses in on .NET customers who have built .NET web applications, and our team can help them move those workloads over to Microsoft Azure through things such as our App Service Migration Assistant tool. So that's specifically what I look after. And I would say in the future, we're probably going to enter into a phase where a lot of corporations and maybe even individuals store everything in the cloud. And so I think that's probably where we're headed.
Thanks for telling us all of that, David. That was really interesting, and I think our listeners and viewers can learn a lot more about Microsoft beyond the general Microsoft Excel, Word, and PowerPoint that we all seem to know. I have another question for you. I was curious to know, what do you find most challenging and interesting about what you do at your job in regards to marketing?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is probably most challenging is just keeping up with the changing landscape. So as marketers, we really need to focus in on what customers are demanding. And that's a big part of my job is gathering that research and data and determining what the best next steps would be in order to best serve our customers. And with with changing landscapes, like for instance, when COVID hit, that really caused us
Mhm.
to have a shift. Impacted my role. I was actually in Azure gaming, focusing on helping customers build and run video games in the cloud. And when COVID hit, we really needed to focus in on our core priorities around helping the broader spectrum of enterprise companies migrate over to the cloud. And so
Mhm.
I would say that's probably the most challenging part, is just making sure you have a good pulse on what your customers really need. Um,
Mhm.
and so we do conduct a lot of research, and we get insights from our sales teams as well, which is helpful. I would say, in terms of what I find most interesting about my role, though, is when I get to work on a product and get to make continuous improvements to that product based on customer input and feedback. Something that I find super rewarding. For instance, when I was working on the Azure portal and Azure mobile app, I had the opportunity to take some research that had been recently conducted, present that to our engineering team, work with them on some solutions that could really help to improve that digital journey for our customers. And I think that's
Mhm.
when, I find my work the most interesting and rewarding, is when I can make an impact on that customer experience, and it impacts a lot of people around the world. So yeah,
Mhm.
that would be the most interesting part of what I do.
Thank you so much for sharing these insights. It sounds like you're doing a lot of great work with Azure, and it was really interesting to hear about your takeaways and insights on the marketing realm and field. I'm curious about your own experiences from campus to career. So at Mid, you majored in film and media culture and minored in economics. Can you tell us the rest of your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so after Middlebury, actually even right before I graduated, I did a J-term internship at Universal Pictures, and
Mhm.
that's what really kind of hooked me in terms of wanting to go
Mhm.
out to Los Angeles. I mean, it was 70 degrees in January, so I was like, I am definitely going back. Um,
Yeah.
so I started off. Actually, I moved to Los Angeles without a job, and I, reconnected with folks from Universal. I made some new connections, and after about a month, I just started getting a lot of calls for interviews from agencies. So the top four agencies are CAA, ICM, UTA, and WME. And I ended up getting an interview with CAA and ICM, and started off in the mailroom of ICM. ICM represents
Mhm.
Beyonce, Drake, Eminem, Al Pacino,
Wow.
um,
Mhm.
Samuel L. Jackson, and it was a really great learning experience. ICM is kind of like the Google of the entertainment industry, in that there's just so much information that goes through agencies on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So that's why producers, studio executives, directors, writers, even start their careers off at these agencies. And so I ended up
Mhm.
staying in the mailroom for about 2 months. You're actually delivering mail, but for the most
Mhm.
part, you're networking with these agents to try to figure out where
Mhm.
it would be. And so I landed on an agent's desk who represented writers and directors, and it was a really great learning experience. I stayed with ICM for about a year and a half, and then after that, I went to help launch a production company for Paramount Pictures called Sunnyfield Entertainment.
Oh.
We were focusing on action and horror films, and that was a really great learning experience as well. A lot of hard work, even harder than it was at the agency, because it was basically a startup. So yeah, it was really, really, really awesome. Um, After about 3 years in Hollywood, I decided to move to New York because I wanted to get more skills in either marketing or finance. I have a very strategic mind as well, and also a creative mind. I think that's why I was a film major and econ minor. And so I found
Mhm.
that marketing marketing was a nice balance between the two. So I ended up starting off as a marketing analyst at Star Companies. Star Companies, a commercial insurance company, and I ended up working for Leilani Brown, who is also a Mid alumni, and really great sponsor and mentor for me. And over the course of the 4 years I worked at Star Companies, I grew to be from a marketing analyst to a director of brand strategy, advertising, and digital. I helped launch several advertising campaigns. I got to work very closely with Ogilvy and Mather, and just learned a lot about marketing in general, and found that I loved the balance between creativity and strategy in my marketing role. But I wasn't that passionate about insurance. And so that's why I decided to go to business school at the University of Michigan to help me transition to a role where I was, surrounded by people and products that I was a little bit more interested in. And so while I was at Michigan, I interned at Microsoft and Office 365 doing relationship marketing, which is basically helping grow usage of products, and so such as Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And I came back and joined the on-ramp program, which is in the cloud marketing group. And so spent a year rotating within the cloud marketing team, did 11 months within the Azure gaming team. And then in this past May, joined this current team, which is Azure App Service, where I'm focusing on .NET.
Perfect. David, thank you. That was very interesting, and I loved hearing about your experiences. Given your experiences and what you know now, what advice can you give to current students on how to best prepare themselves for entry points into the career field?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think one of the ways that you can best prepare yourself is to do internships, and do them often. I think I did an internship every single summer and took advantage of J terms as well. But for me, I didn't know that I would want to do marketing and technology, and it's something that took some learning to do. I started off more on the creative side, as I mentioned, in film, and but and then landed in technology later on, years later. But even while I was at Middlebury, I started off doing internships in finance and in insurance. I was at John Hancock for 2 summers, and then I worked at New England Sports Network in finance, and then I moved more over to the creative side. It was working at NBCSports.com doing video production for the website. And through all these experiences, and then landed at Universal Pictures, and through those experiences, learned that I loved film, and wanted to do something in that area, but continued on my path, and found that that wasn't the only thing I wanted to do, and really kind of missed the strategy aspect of it. And so I would say, unless you're really certain about what you want to do, that wasn't me. But if that is someone who's watching this, that's great. And I would try to intern at the company that really excites you, that matches your values, and has a culture that you're really looking for. And that's something that became really important to me over the years as well. So yeah, get in there, do the best job you can, and learn as much as you can, and have a growth mindset. I think that's really important as well. And hopefully, you can land there full time, after you leave. But just know it's also okay not to know exactly what you want to do. And earlier on you're in your career, the more opportunity you have to figure that out later on, in terms of what you want to do for the long run. So it can be a bit of trial and error, and that's perfectly fine. I guess is what
Yeah. So with academic backgrounds, what academic background would you say is most suited for a role like yours, including an advanced degree? I know that coming from Middlebury College, where we focus on a liberal arts education, we don't necessarily get the traditional marketing exposure or other business courses that other students might get. I was curious to hear what kind of skill sets you would say are important when pursuing a career in this field, or just any other tips you would have.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of different skills that can help. And I, I I don't think that there is one path. Like my path was to pursue film, and then I used an MBA to help me make that transition. I want to be clear in that not everybody who I work with has an MBA. There are a lot of people that have been
Mhm.
at Microsoft for a long time who don't have MBAs. And so I think, if you're someone who knows you want to go into marketing, I think the skills that are required are, having really good communication skills, good writing skills, being a really good project manager, being good at doing data analysis, having really good presentation skills. All those things are are things that you can get outside of an MBA, and things that you probably do in lots of different coursework at Middlebury. And so I would say, if you can lean into some of those areas, I think those will set you up very nicely in terms of being a marketer. But I also think if you match that with gaining experience over time, as I mentioned, through internships, you could jump into a marketing role at Microsoft through our ACE program, for example, which is another rotational program for undergraduates, and lean into a marketing career at Microsoft from there. But yeah, that's just one way to do it. And if you happen to want to pursue something else in a different industry, you can always get an MBA, and that could help you to get there as well. So yeah, that was just my experience. But
David, thank you once again for your engagement with us and helping students to prepare for their first career destinations. This concludes this episode within the series Exploring Careers and Technology's New Frontiers. In closing, I want to encourage viewers to tune in to get any career perspectives and advice from a number of professionals in a broad variety of organizations in our other episodes in this series. I also want to encourage you to tune in to the other MIDDVantage series, which can be accessed through the Events and Programs tab on the CCI website. Thank you again for watching.